Good morning. Today is Tuesday, July the 2nd, and we are back for another Tuesday tip. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Pia Miller. I'm an attorney in Virginia, own my own law firm, and every Tuesday I come in and talk about a little something random. And that little something random for today, okay, so it's not going to be little, just going to warn y'all in advance. It is July 2nd, which means that yesterday was July 1st, which means that is the day that most of the new laws from the most recent Virginia legislative session go into effect. So I want to highlight a few of those recent legislative changes that are now in effect. But today I'm only going to focus on some of the new things that are in the family law arena. So this is going to deal primarily with Section 20 of the Virginia Code. Pia, what does that mean? There's a whole bunch of sections in the Virginia Code. There's a whole bunch of books. If you've ever seen, the big black books, Section 20 is primarily going to be your family law section. There are some other sections that sometimes tie into family laws, parts of 16.1, things like that, but mainly focusing on Section 20. We'll do some other highlights around some of the new criminal offenses because there were lots of things that went on with that side of the world. But the other thing I want to point out with this legislative session that was pretty interesting is that this session had the most number of vetoes ever for Virginia. Don't really know why that is. That's between the governor and you gotta talk to your elected officials about why that happened. But the governor did veto a significant number of bills. So things that had been worked out on a bipartisan basis made it to the governor's desk, and the governor still said, "No, I'm not signing it," and kicked it. So. I say that to say I think a lot of the things that went through this past session will probably be coming back up. Some of the things that got vetoed, they may try to rework them, things of that nature. But anyway, I'm going to put all that to the side. Other thing I'm going to say when we talk about legislative updates is the fact that I'm going to reference the bill number, but I'm also going to reference the code section. So the bill number is just, how it got through the actual legislative body. But bills are going to either amend an existing code section or they are going to create a new code section. So that's all that means. All right, so I want to talk about 4 statutes. I've got notes. Bear with me, y'all, okay? There was a lot that went on this session. Okay, so one of the first bills I want to talk about is House Bill 174. So this one specifically prohibits the denial of a marriage license based on sex, gender, or race. This bill specifically amends Virginia Code Section 20-13.2 to add in protections, but it also adds language that allows religious organizations and clergy members acting in their religious capacity the right to refuse to perform any marriage. So this one was kind of a both sides of the coin bill. We have the one side where if you're going to your local circuit court clerk's office to obtain your marriage license, you cannot be denied your marriage license based on sex, gender, or race. So you can get your marriage license. However, when you actually go to try to get someone to perform your ceremony, if that person is a member of the clergy or if it is a religious organization and they are acting in their religious capacity, they can still choose to decline to perform your ceremony. Gonna leave that there. If you have questions about it, ask, okay? Second bill I want to highlight. House Bill 994. So this establishes a minimum age to marry, and that minimum age is now 18. Pia, wasn't that always a thing? Like, didn't you always have to be 18 to get married? No, you didn't. Not in Virginia. You could have been young. You could have been younger. You could have been 16. And where this came up a lot is when we had emancipated minors. Pia, what's an emancipated minor? So an emancipated minor is someone who has petitioned their court. It's a stringent process. You can't just say like, oh, I don't like my parents anymore, and so I want to be an emancipated minor. You had to prove to the court that you were financially independent, that you had your own housing, that you were fully self-sufficient. And so if you made it through that process, you could be deemed an emancipated minor. If you got through that process, you could also get married. So there were some 16, 17-year-olds who were getting married. Gonna leave that to the side. If that was your decision or if your parents signed off on it, that's a separate conversation, right? But now House Bill 994 amends Virginia Code Sections 20-48 and 20-89.1 to remove the emancipated minor language for people who are eligible to get married. So the 18 is now the minimum age. You have to be 18 to get married in Virginia. If you want to do something else, you probably got to look at another state, and we're going to just leave that there, all right? House Bill 783. It makes Virginia Code Section 63.2-1201.1 gender neutral. So Pia, weren't we talking about Section 20? What is 63.2? So this is the section that deals a lot with adoptions. So this makes that language gender neutral relating to parental placement and agency adoptions. So removed man and woman to allow for same-sex couples to just, again, have gender neutral language. It also authorizes the hospital to release a child to prospective parents when the birth parent has executed a healthcare power of attorney. Pia, what does that mean? So what that means is when there was an agency placement or some sort of agreement, normally the agency would have needed to wait on a court order, and sometimes that can take weeks in order to get that order before the baby could be released to the possible placement. So instead of doing that, the birth parent is now allowed to execute a healthcare power of attorney. You've heard me talk about those in the past. Scroll back in the videos, go to the archive on YouTube. But if the parent does execute that healthcare power of attorney, giving the placement option parents that authority, then the hospital can release the child to those placement parents. Questions, reach out. Okay, last bill that I want to highlight. This one's kind of straightforward. Seems kind of obvious, but it wasn't. So House Bill 194 amends Virginia Code Sections 20-124.7 and 20-108 to add the United States Space Force to the listed military branches covered by the Virginia Military Parents Equal Protection Act. So Pia, why is that important? So there are certain protections that are offered to service members as they are going through a divorce or through any sorts of court proceedings related to the family law arena, and the United States Space Force is still a newer branch, and they were not specifically delineated to be offered those protections in the Virginia Code. So the code has been amended to add the Space Force, and so they have the same protections as all the other service members as well. That's it, y'all. At least for the family law arena. Again, there's more. There's other code sections that were amended. There were other bills that presented. Some of them are a little bit more administrative, which is why I didn't highlight them. But there's more. I promise you, there's more. And there's a lot more when we start talking about the criminal arena. As always, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Drink your water. It's hot outside. You know what to do. All right. Come back next Tuesday for our next Tuesday tip. Take care, guys.